This is a full pageantry red carpet welcome for the Chinese president. And President Xi's visit is expected to boost economic ties between the two neighbors. China is now Russia's largest trading partner. In 2018, the trade volume between the two neighbors exceeded $100 billion. That is a record high. They have also been involved in major joint projects in energy, transportation, aviation, and space. Chinese President Xi will also visit the opening of a panda house, this time in Russia. He will inspect a factory of Chinese auto manufacturer and a ballet performance of the Bolshoi Theater. And then he will fly to St. Petersburg to attend the 23rd St. Petersburg International Economic Forum starting Thursday. This is an entourage of both delegations who will accompany Chinese President Xi's visit in Russia and also attend the St. Petersburg Economic Forum. Last summer, as we understand, the first shipment of natural gas sailed to China from Russia's Yamal Peninsula in the Arctic already began. And now let's talk about China-Russia relations. We're now joined by Cui Hongjian. He's the director of European Studies Department at the China Institute of International Studies. Now, President Xi and President Putin have already met. This is a state visit, and they will also attend the St. Petersburg Economic Forum. But many people say the relations between China and Russia enjoy political warming up, but there is a lackluster development in the area of energy, in the area of economy. But last year, the bilateral trade exceeded $100 billion. What do you make of the progress of economic stepping up of their cooperation?
To some degree, this view is true, that especially in the past, I think that there is not the balance, between the different fields for bilateral relations between China and Russia, especially comparing with political, energy, and security cooperation. The economic cooperation between China and Russia used to be a shortcoming for these relations. But I think in recent years, this situation changed a lot. I think firstly because of a lot of the requirement from the Russian side to develop its comprehensive economic structure. And as we found before, that the journalist in the St. Petersburg Forum say that one of the topics to deal with this sustainable economic development in Russia now is how to reduce the dependency of Russian economy on oil and gas.
How can China help Russia to diversify its economy?
Yes, I think firstly, China now had a lot of the investment in Russia, including, I think, industries not only for oil and gas, and also in manufacturing, and also some other sectors. And another is how could China and Russia work together to develop more potential, especially just like we mentioned, agriculture. Now the agricultural cooperation between China and Russia is not only a very simple buyer to seller, and now there will be more new model of cooperation. For example, Chinese agriculture, Chinese technology, and also the land of Russia, and then the market in China. I think it's a new kind of structure for this cooperation. Another is, I think now the Chinese market has a lot of attraction to the to the producers or the sectors in Russia. I think it will give a very strong dynamic to this change of the economic structure and also more economic cooperation.
And now the two presidents, Chinese President Xi and Russian President Putin, are now having an official meeting inside the Kremlin. Well, as Mr. Cui just mentioned,
Уважаемый председатель
this
Си
is President
Цзиньпинь,
Putin.
дорогой друг, уважаемые китайские коллеги, нам очень
Dear
приятно
friends and
принимать
colleagues
вас
from China,
сегодня
it's
в
really my
московской
pleasure to have such an opportunity to sit here in the Kremlin, here
ключевое событие
to welcome
двусторонних
you.
отношений.
And President Xi's visit to Russia is a magnificent event, or even the most important event this year.
Нам встретиться
This meeting is at very high level, and it gives us a rare opportunity to discuss the issues concerning bilateral relationships and some hotspot issues in the international community, particularly about the bilateral relationship. Your visit here to Russia this time matters to our anniversary of our diplomatic ties. When the PRC was firstly founded, the Soviet Union acknowledged the status of PRC and established our bilateral ties. I would really love to give my thanks to President Xi Jinping for your role in our bilateral relationships, taking it to an unprecedented level. It is also worth mentioning that our bilateral relationship has come to a new high, which is conducive to the people in two nations. We would give full play to our unique competitiveness and realize comprehensive growth. Last year, our bilateral trade exceeded about 100 billion US dollars. That is thanks to the support of the two governments in China and Russia and the efforts of all sectors. We will attempt to continue the momentum of such bilateral trade. In the first half of this year, we are determined to maintain such a good momentum, and we have confidence to believe that with President Xi's support to such a trade development is quite promising. So thank you again for coming here. We are pleased to meet you here, and I am convinced that your visit here will further promote our bilateral relationship. Distinguished President Putin and dear friends, I share your excitement. The pleasure is mine for such a gathering again. So thank you for your invitation. In my new tenure, this is my first official state visit to Russia. But actually between us, we have all sorts of mutual exchanges in different forms. I also want to thank you for being present on the Belt and Road Forum in April in Beijing. And thank you for your support and your influence on that event. This year marks the 70th anniversary of our diplomatic ties. Ever since the founding of the People's Republic of China, as you said, Soviet Union was one of the first to acknowledge the status of the new China. And in the past 7 decades, we have endured the twists and turns of the international situation. But we take steady steps forward, one by one. And we have come to today. This is like the best times for Sino-Russian relationship. We have answered the call of the people in two nations. The 70th anniversary is a new milestone and a new starting point. Especially, we are involved in unprecedented transformations of the international community, and we have to bear the high expectations from others abroad. Our friendship will be everlasting, and it will only go better. And China attempts to step up our efforts to elevate our high-level political relationship to a new level, and we will continuously give more sense of gaining to the people in two nations. And we will generate more plans dedicated to such bilateral relationship. And I really look forward to this state visit. I also believe that this visit will have a lot more fruits. Thank you again. Thank you for all the considerate arrangements.
That's Chinese President Xi Jinping met with President Putin. While both presidents have reiterated the message, this is the 70th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Russia and China. And former Soviet Union was the first country to recognize the People's Republic of China in 1949. And President Putin said the bilateral trade has shown good momentum last year, and this year they should continue that momentum. President Xi thanked President Putin for attending the BRI forum in Beijing. He said, "This is the best time of bilateral relations ever in the history of the two countries. It is a milestone. It is also a starting point for China-Russia relations." He said, "The political cooperation will be expanded and it will have everlasting results, and people will gain from the bilateral cooperation between the two sides." And now we are joined in the studio by Mr. Cui Hongjian for some analysis. He's the director of the European Studies of the China Institute of International Studies. So, Mr. Cui, it seems that both leaders are very upbeat about the potential of future relations. One key item of their cooperation is, of course, the Belt and Road Initiative and the Euro-Asian Economic Union. We understand that in the initial stage, actually Russia had some doubts about whether the two can enmesh with one another. Why there was a change of understanding about the compatibility of the two initiatives?
I think yes, to some degree, especially in the past, the Russian side had a little bit of suspicion about how could the potential and especially concrete achievements for cooperation with China. But I think now, indeed, since the year of 2015, and the Russian side now changed a lot about its attitude towards this cooperation with China in the BRI and the Euro-Asia Economic Union. I think the reason is, firstly, the BRI itself showed a lot of potential and also the capability to deal with some challenges for sustainable development. And for example, now we have more and more projects between China and Russia in the frame of a signature between BRI and its Euro-Asia Economic Union, not only on the energy and also on some other economic sectors. I think it proved to the Russian side that yes, it could be a very potential cooperation. Secondly, I think there are a lot of requirements for Russian economy, because as we know, because of the sanctions imposed by some Western countries, now the Russian side need to develop more new markets in Asia, in China, and some other. So I think all of these factors give the reasons for this.
I understand that Belt and Road has a large part dedicated to infrastructure projects. Yes. Of course, Russia has Siberia Railway, but it's low speed and the cargo transport and passenger flow is not that big. Why cannot China build a high-speed railway line between China and Russia? Why that project hasn't taken shape yet?
I think indeed for this project you mentioned with the high-speed rail between especially the so-called Far East part of Russia, of course starting from China and go through the Far East part of Russia and to the European part of Russia, I think always on the agenda, also always in the mind. Also we know that it could be the part of a so-called Euro-Asia continental land bridge. But of course now the question is, firstly, yes, we do have some practical issues need to be dealt with. I think firstly, for Russia, it should deal with this issue between the central government and the local government. Also, we know so far, maybe for the local government, they do have a different understanding about how it is potential and how it is pressing to deal with this, to build up this, transportation. Another is, so far, I think we need to get some more opportunity for both China and Russia to develop the Siberia part in Russia, because once they are more trade and more requirement, more investment in that region, there will be more and more requirement for more transportation.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Cui, for your analysis. And you've been watching a special program on Chinese President Xi's state visit to Russia. And I'm Joe in Beijing. Bye for now. Up next is The World Today.